My tuna. Dolphins safe. You know what's not, though? Jerron Reed and Preston Smith. Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Del Rey. Yes, finally a post-Christmas episode of the show. I'm going to be going through shout-outs and get-outs from the Green Bay Packers' victory over the Miami Dolphins on Christmas Day. Hey, before we get into that, though, there has been a whole bunch of news coming, most of it today, but a little bit yesterday, and so I'm going to recap that Packers news for you. Just a reminder, there is a Jordy Nelson signing coming up as well, so if you want details to that, just drop a comment and I'll tell you everything I know. And in addition, for the memorabilia collectors out there, the Packer Pro Shop right now, it's only sold in the Pro Shop, has one of the most interesting things that I've seen there in a very long time. We know that in the past they have sold bleacher seats. They've sold off parts of the stadium, right? But for the first time that at least I can remember, and a lot of the collector friends that I have that they can remember, they're actually selling part of the front railing. That's right, like the fencing that goes in front of row one in the bowl, that many time painted fencing. It's available at the Pro Shop. Supposedly they're just bringing them out in small batches, but they do have access to many more. I've heard there's different varying sizes. Some are 4 feet, some are 6 feet, but they're there. And you can grab them. And these are the fence rails that have been in Lambeau from 1957 until last year when they replaced them. So it's a really neat piece of history. I mean, these were the chunks of fence that were available, that were there during the Ice Bowl, that were there during so many of the great Packer memories that all of us know and love. If you want a true piece of Lambeau, it's available for sale right now in the Packer Pro Shop. However, I'm going to warn you, it ain't cheap. Yeah, the Pro Shop seemingly has caught on to the fact that the collector's market is incredibly, not only volatile, but incredibly hot right now, with a lot of people, a lot of Packer collectors getting things significantly more and paying more than they have in years past. That's why each one of those fence sections is $1,500. Yes, that's right. It is $1,500 for a 4 to 6 foot section of fence. But if you want the history, if you appreciate it, if you love it, then they are available there for you at the Pro Shop. So let's dive into the news. First of all, just want to give a shout out before we get to the true shout outs and get outs too. Andy Herman, who is, some call him the Podfather, he's a massive figure in Packers Twitter, Packer podcasting. He's one of the guys that did it years ago, and I don't want to say started a lot of this, but he certainly has been around, and he has a very large following. I listen to him a lot. He posed the question on Twitter today of who are some startup content creators, who are people who just don't have a huge following that are doing really great things. And I just want to say that there were a bunch of people listed there, and I agree with many of the people that tweeted back at Andy Herman and said so-and-so. But one person in particular, Tyler, said Lombardi Time Brews. And Tyler, if you're catching this episode, I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thanks. Not to deter anywhere from Packers news, but just this is my first year doing this. We are so close. We're creeping up to 300 followers, which is a goal that I didn't even know I had when I started this in August. I know in the grand scheme of things, 300 followers or 300 subscribers on YouTube is not a high number. But I didn't know if I would be at 10 subscribers by this point. Certainly happy to be at 300. And really the moral of the story is to see my name or to see the channel listed amongst a lot of other people with larger of subscriber counts, or people who have been doing it for definitely far longer than I have. Tyler, it meant the world. So if you catch this episode, really, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, thanks for giving me a shout out. So, Packers news. Well, let's start off here. Dean Lowry is headed to the injured reserve. Yes, he played part of the game against Miami, but it's clear that that injury has ended his season. So, could very well be his last snap in the green and gold as well, so please bear that in mind. Now, what are the ramifications here? Well, we already saw Wyatt basically take his place in terms of snap count. Wyatt got by far the most snaps of his career in the game against Miami. And we've been clamoring for Wyatt to get more playing time over Lowry anyway, right? So, here we are. This is the perfect, I don't want to say excuse. I'm not going to say that Dean Lowry's getting Wally pipped. But it was time for Wyatt to play more. And now we certainly are going to see that because of the injury to Dean Lowry. Roster building standpoint, though, what does it really do? Well, knocks him down to only 5 active defensive linemen in amongst the 53. And one of them, Jonathan Ford, has basically been a healthy scratch all year. After being a 7th-round pick, he's never played. So what does it really leave him with? Well, it leaves him with Wyatt, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Jerron Reed. Now, Reed is coming off his best game of the year by a mile against Miami, but still, for all intents and purposes, you have 4 defensive linemen now. And 5 if you include Jonathan Ford, who they don't seem like they want to all that much. So are we going to see someone added? Certainly is possible. We could see signing from somebody else's practice squad. We could see Chris Slayton, who's on the practice squad. We could see him just get elevated. We could see even Jonathan Ford actually start to play. But regardless, there now is an opening on the 53, and you have to think one way or another, some defensive line reinforcements are coming. Now, other notes about the 53, we did have one other transaction today. Tipa, the edge player, Tipa Naliai, he has been waived, and instead they have signed Bo Melton, the rookie wide receiver from Seattle. He was a 7th-round pick, a very high RAS score, up over 9.2, which is a very high RAS score. For those of you that don't know, a RAS score is a relative athletic score. It's a collection of data from combine or pro day workouts as guys are entering the league that gives you one composite score for how athletic a player is compared to his peers. And 9.24 is a very, very high score. And the Packers, as we know, have a clear tendency to value high RAS players. With that being said, though, he's very fast, about a 4.3 40, but he's also a little guy. About 189 pounds, 5'9", 5'10", in that ballpark, depending on which scouting report numbers you go with. But he's a little guy. He's fast, viewed a lot as a gadget player. A lot of draftniks really loved him heading into the draft, thought he was a great day 3 choice by Seattle. A lot of people were very surprised that he lasted until the 7th round. So, could be a fun little something. He's been on Seattle's practice squad all year. Green Bay electing to bring him in. In addition, one other note that I just wanted to give you too, Elgton Jenkins obviously signing his contract extension. Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, he heard from a source, he got some numbers on it now. We knew the total contract value, we knew about the $16 million, the $20 million, and how it breaks down over the different years. What we didn't know is how they structured the year 2023. Obviously an extremely important year for the Packers, a very expensive year for the Packers in terms of the cap. The Packers are going to have a lot of cap difficulties. And getting Elgton Jenkins back on a number that was actually acceptable to the state of the Packers cap is a very big deal. Well, Silverstein believes that he has the numbers, and because the Packers were able to get the extension done now during the 2022 season, they're able to take part of the signing bonus and attribute it to this year's cap. Meaning, they didn't have to attribute all of 2023's allotment to 2023, thus helping the 2023 cap. So they spent a little over $4 million right now on the signing bonus. And that means that for the year 2023, Elgton Jenkins' cap number, according to Silverstein, according to his sources, but $6.3 million is going to be Elgton Jenkins' cap number for a guy that you're paying a $16 million salary. For a premier player, $6.3 million cap charge next year. That is a huge win for the Packers, a huge asset to their pursuit of trying to of trying to get this entire roster back together if that's the course that it's looking like it's going to take, and I think it is. So Elgton Jenkins back officially for 2023. The more important part and the news of the day is at an affordable number. Lastly, just a couple injury updates before I get into get-outs and shout-outs. David Bakhtiari, he's still working his way back from that emergency appendectomy. Aaron Rodgers on the McAfee show today said that he would expect that Bakhtiari is going to start practicing today. Rodgers also said on McAfee that Keyshawn Nixon has told Rodgers, because they're like best friends now, that Nixon is expecting to be good to go as well. Other injuries, Christian Watson and Yosh Nijman. Last we've heard about their injuries, Matt LaFleur said that they were day to day. I think that certainly bodes well for the matchup upcoming against Minnesota. So, let's dive in. Who are the players who stood out? Who are the players who need to get out? So, shout-outs and get-outs. And let's just start off right away with the good news, right? This is from the Packers game against Miami. Number one, Jarran Reed. Yes, PFF grade of 89.9, by far his highest grade of the year. One of the highest grades for an interior defensive lineman in an individual game across the entire NFL this year. How did Reed get that grade? He did really well against the run. I mean, that's really all it boils down to. I mean, he was a monster against the run. He forced that fumble. He also had 4 stops, according to PFF. Now, what is a stop? A stop is, I know it's not just a tackle like it sounds, right? But a stop is when PFF determines that you have stopped a play. You've gone out of your way to stop a play that if you didn't make the extra effort would have gone for more. So Jarran Reed got 4 of those standout plays for stops. One hell of a game for Jarran Reed. Number 2, sticking along the line of the defense, Preston Smith. Yeah, I said a few weeks ago, Preston Smith, he's been up and down, but with Rashawn Gary out, he has to become, and I hate this word, I hate it, but he's got to become the alpha edge, right? He's got to become that number 1 guy, partly to help relieve pressure off of Kenny, partly just so the Packers have a pass rush at all without Rashawn Gary. Well, against Miami, he did it. PFF grade of 90. He was an absolute game wrecker, one of his highest grades of the year. But I think really important for Preston, too, you know, if you look over his career numbers, he had this fascinating statistical anomaly where every other year he was really good. In the off years, he would get like 4 sacks, but then his good years, he would get like 8 to 12. And it was consistent his entire career. Every other year was really good. Well, he had a strong year last year. He's having a great year this year. He really is. I said a few weeks ago, I think, some Packer fans are saying, well, there's no way he's coming back on his salary. When you look at that contract and with the way he's performing, yeah, he is. I really believe Preston Smith's coming back, and all of that talk of him being released can quiet down. Number 3, Darnell Savage. Yeah, first-round pick, formerly benched, played 32 defensive snaps and played quite well going back to his old safety spot. The one thing that I don't understand here is his snaps seem to come at the expense of Rudy Ford, but Rudy Ford I never saw an injury report on. I never saw any type of designation for Rudy Ford. So, and going back and watching the game, it didn't appear as though Ford royally messed anything up. And we know how fast Ford is, so why? That's the only part I don't understand. But credit due where it's due, Darnell Savage played really, really well across his 32 snaps, even earning a post-game shout-out from Matt LaFleur. The only question is, why did those snaps come at the expense of Rudy Ford? Is there something that we don't know? And then number 4, the offensive line. I mean, look, we talked in the game preview about Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Melvin Ingram. I mean, it is no joke of a rotation that Miami has at edge. They also have Christian Wilkins in the interior defensive line. I mean, that is a really good group of pass rushers for the Miami Dolphins. And the Green Bay Packer offensive line did it. I mean, Zach Tom gave up 2 pressures. Elgton Jenkins, 0. Josh Myers, 1. John Runyon Jr., 1. Royce Newman, 1 as he was filling in for Yosh. Yosh, before he departed, gave up 0. But still, I mean, you're looking at 5 total pressures against a very good Miami pass rush front. And that's with 2 backups playing. I mean, 40% of those pressures came against your rookie 5th-round pick who's filling in for your all-pro left tackle. And another 20% of them came with Royce Newman. Whatever Royce Newman is, came with Royce Newman playing right tackle. So one hell of a testament to the Green Bay Packer offensive line, especially the interior line, but also, again, credit where it's due. Royce Newman, Zach Tom, the backups, playing lights out football against Miami Dolphins. Now, the get-outs. What don't we like? Well, here's number one. And it's not even anybody's fault, but injuries. Man, I mean, this team it's getting to the bottom of the barrel, isn't it? Rashawn Gary hurt. Eric Stokes hurt. Massive injuries across the board. All of David Bakhtiari's ailments. Right? But then in this game, you pair in the fact that you lost Christian Watson. And we know from this entire year how important Watson's speed is to the sake of the offense. All right, so you lost Christian Watson mid-game. You lost the epitome of human spark plug, Keyshawn Nixon. You lost Yash. You lost Aaron Jones for part of the game. So, huge injury impact on the game. Packers still fortunate to pull out the win. It doesn't also sound like any of these injuries may hold the guys out past this week. Obviously, a huge deal as the Packers continue their playoff push. But injuries, they gotta stop. Eventually, they have to stop, right? Number two, the fake punt and the play calling. Look, I have been clamoring for this team to do a fake punt forever. Why are you doing it when you did? I mean, on your own 20, in a game that you have to have. I love the idea of the fake punt, but when you chose to do it, baffling at best. Not to mention the fact that all of these, like 3rd and short, 4th and short, all the play calling here has just gotten more and more questionable. Finally, we saw an Aaron Rodgers QB sneak, and it worked. But we know Rodgers hates doing them. We know LaFleur doesn't call them. Yet it works when they finally do it. It finally occurred, and it worked. But beyond that, one of the plays, I think it was a 3rd down and short, they did just a halfback dive with A.J. Dillon. I mean, here's what happens, right? When it's 3rd and short or 4th and short, here's what always seems to happen to a disturbingly predictable level. It's either halfback dive with A.J. Dillon, where he runs straight into somebody's back, or it's 4th and 2, so we're going to do a play action, or we're going to go into shotgun, and we're going to launch it 40 yards deep. Back against the Giants, I was complaining about this. What are you doing? Just get 2 yards. And you know what? There's more creative ways than halfback dive to get 2 yards. I swear, I do not have the NFL coaching pedigree, right? But play Madden, right? I mean, just go play Madden. Halfback dive doesn't work all the time. Also, launching the ball 40 yards deep on 4th and 2 doesn't work a lot of the time. Unless you got Tyreek Hill. But, I mean, it just feels like when we get into these 3rd and shorts, these 4th and shorts, the coaches just go, and they just pick one. And it's messed up. For a team that can be so efficient on offense at other times, they just get so bottled up on these 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts, or even near the goal line, that all logic just seems to go out the window, and I do not understand it. Kind of tying that in, the next one, Aaron Rodgers' consistency. Now, this is not to bash on Aaron Rodgers, but look, it's a fact, right? Sometimes he's Superman. No doubt about it. Look at that completion of Mercedes Lewis. That could have been called an incompletion, but look at that completion of Mercedes Lewis. One of Rodgers' most impressive plays of the year. An unbelievable throw. But then look at that 4th and 2 deep shot where he's just straight up off. Or how about the one pass to Lazard? It's Allen Lazard. You can't blame a rookie. You had a clean pocket. You can't blame the O-line. Even some of the throws to Lazard are just off. And that's the thing. Okay, fine. You want to blame it on Dobbs running a bad route. You want to run it on Christian. Fine. But sometimes these throws are just off. Sometimes he's Superman. Sometimes he's just an old man. And the question is, why? What happened? What's off in the precision of the offense? Because if these things are happening with Lazard, who are you going to blame? So, is it still the thumb? I mean, he's not wearing the wrap anymore. We don't know. But all I know is, let's say we actually make it to the playoffs. We all need to hope and pray and send all the positive vibes that we don't get the version of Aaron Rodgers that's missing Allen Lazard on open throws, or the version of Aaron Rodgers that we always seem to get against Frisco in the playoffs. It happens a few times. It's concerning. It happens as much as it's happening. It's downright a problem, no matter how good he is on the opposite side of the spectrum. And the last get out. Look, some of you may hate this, but the truth is, if you're still hating on Joe Barry, or now, I'm going to add a caveat there, if you're hating on Joe Barry for his game plan against Miami. Yeah, the first half had its problems, no doubt about it. And you can attribute it to, again, missed tackling, which I don't understand for this team or Joe Barry, but you can attribute that to missed tackling. The run game certainly wasn't going, or the run defense certainly wasn't going well for the Packers. But look, in the second half, the defense adapted. It got to Tua. All of a sudden, in the first half, they weren't getting as much pressure on Tua, but the second half, you can't tell me that they didn't. Now, in full transparency, do we have to attribute part of Tua's struggles to what we have learned, that suddenly he's in concussion protocol following the game? And he more than likely played the second half of the game with the concussion? So, full transparency, we have to acknowledge that, right? But nonetheless, you went from being a defense that was getting absolutely torched in half number one to being a lockdown unit half number two. And as much as we all can hate on Joe Barry, we also got to acknowledge when it goes well. And this time, he deserves the kudos. Thanks for checking out this episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I will be back tomorrow night. I'll have another episode for you on Wednesday night. And then, of course, looking farther ahead on Friday, I will have a game preview for Packers versus Vikings. Thanks so much for checking out today's show. Like I said, we are so close to 300 subs, so share this, like it, comment on this page. That helps in the algorithm too. Comment on this video. Help. Please do something. We're so close to 300. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Thanks for being here and a part of the community. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. I'll just leave it at that for now. So, thanks for being here. I hope you had a fantastic day, and I will be back tomorrow. And as always, go Pack Go.